Hi, I'm Richard Rogers, and I absolutely hope that you enjoy today's spiritual message. You know, we at Unity of Phoenix Spiritual Center are committed to helping people live better lives. We're going to provide you tools over and over, spiritual tools that allow you to live your best possible life. And if you want to leave a donation to continue to allow the work that we do to support other people just like you, we say thank you. Thank you for your generosity, because this ministry is committed to making the world a better place.
Okay. So I want to talk about possibilities, because I think one of the most difficult things about being a spiritual being is seeing possibilities. Because all of us see the possibilities that we're used to seeing, right? And if you looked at all the possibilities for your life, you could probably create a scale. You know, the possibilities may be this wide or maybe wider or smaller. Each one of us creates our own, or awareness of our own possibilities. It's going to be a certain width, a certain dimension, right? But we know from a spiritual point of view that those possibilities are much more extensive. True? Right? With God, there are infinite possibilities. True? But if you don't see those infinite possibilities, it's not helpful. True? So if you only think one thing is possible, and all of us have been in that place where somebody said something to you, or somebody did something to you, or life presented itself in a certain way, and the way that you responded to that situation in your mind, in your heart, was the only way you could respond to that situation. Can everybody think about a time in your life where you responded in such a way and later you thought, maybe darn it. There was another way I could have responded to that, but in that moment, that was all I had. Have you been in that position where in that moment, the only way you can respond is what you think is possible, and all you think is possible really comes out of your past, right? It comes out of your family. It comes out about the way you were raised. It comes out of your past. And what I want to talk about tonight is a much bigger spectrum. I want to talk about an infinite spectrum. And how do you see an infinite spectrum when you've been raised in a finite world? Because you'll swear that it's not possible. You'll swear to it. And yet you'll also swear that it would be possible for someone else. Like somebody else could have done that, or somebody else could have that, or somebody else could live a life that big. Somebody else could have it, but you can't have it. And in your mind, you've really differentiated it so that makes sense to you, right? Like that some people get to have blessings and some people don't. Some people get to have that level of good and some people don't. Some people can be that happy and some people don't. And what I want you to see over and over again is that weirdness is only in your mind. Can I get an amen? And then how do we kind of pop this thing open a little bit? So tonight I wanted to use, or I am going to use, a book by Russell Cornwell called Acres of Diamonds. Have you ever heard of it? Have you ever read it? If you haven't read it yet, I want you to get a copy of it. It's only like 50 pages. And really what it is it's a speech that he gave from the time he was 16 to well into his 70s, and he gave it over 6,000 times. And he's the founder of Temple University. He was American Baptist minister, orator, philanthropist, lawyer, writer, and he wrote this speech when he was 16 years old called Acres of Diamonds. And it later became a book, but it was a speech. And even if you get it now, you're going to hear 150-year-old language because it's 150 years old. And it was a speech that he gave over and over again. In fact, he made over $11 million over the course of his life from giving this speech. So you know how many times you have to give a speech to make $11 million when you're in the 1800s? A lot, right? And so he wrote, and they said they called him the penniless millionaire because everything that he ever made from this speech, he put back and gave to others. He put it into Temple University. He put it into making sure that people in need had education. He invested it back in people because he believed in what it was in this speech. And the speech, if you read it, and I really hope that you do, it begins with his sharing 4 stories about 4 different men. And each one of these men has a real longing, a real desire for a greater life, a more abundant life, a more prosperous life. And each one in their own way goes out to create that level of abundance, to access that level of good. And the first man that he tells about is a man in the Middle East who sells his farm and goes out to explore the world because he wants to find diamonds. He is captured by this idea of diamonds, and he wants to find diamonds. He wants to explore where diamonds are. He wants to become a wealthy man because of diamonds. So he sells his farm, and he goes out on this journey to find the perfect place for diamonds. And he goes throughout the Middle East, goes throughout Europe, and actually in the story he dies in Barcelona, Spain, broke, penniless, and takes his own life because he never achieved his desire. And you think, well, that's a really depressing way to start a story. But in chapter 2 of the story, what we learn is that the farm that he sold became the largest diamond mine in the world at that time. And that it produced millions and millions of dollars per acre of diamonds. In fact, they were so close to the surface that they were discovered when a camel was drinking water in a stream, and they noticed the diamond was right there. And so what he longed for the most, guess what he had the whole time? So what his soul always wanted, what he longed for the most, he always had. Then he tells another story. And the other story is about a man who owned a ranch in Central California. And the year is 1847. And this man wants to go explore for gold. He's heard rumors about gold being in Southern California. And he wants to sell his ranch in Central California and go to Southern California and see if he can become rich from gold. So he sells his ranch to a man named Colonel Sutters, and it becomes Sutter's Farm. And 2 years after he sells it, it becomes the start of the gold rush. And it makes more money per acre in gold than anywhere in the world. And then he talks about a man who is in his home state of Pennsylvania who wants to go in the coal business, and he's got a small dairy farm. And because there's this gooey stuff in the water, he has to put a plank over the top of it, right? So that the gooey stuff goes off and the clear water goes underneath this plank. And he has to spend a lot of time and energy cleaning this gooey stuff off. And of course, in the story, guess what the gooey stuff is? It's oil. And so he sells his farm to go explore for oil. And the point over and over again in all these stories in one way or another is that everything they long for, what's the point? They already had. But the one thing that is interesting about all these stories is they never realized they had it. And you think, what a bunch of just idiots. Maybe you wouldn't say that because you're judge not that whole thing, right? But you might want to just say, wow, how pathetic is that, right? Right? But then I Googled, just for grins, masterpieces found in attics. Do you know how many masterpieces are found in attics? I wish I had an attic. Like one of them in France or in Paris, there was this one, a 400-year-old work of art from, and I'm going to mess up his last name, it's Caravaggio, was found, and it was worth $136 million. Did I say that with enough emphasis? $136 million, found it in their attic, unrolled it, took 2 years to verify that it was authentic. It was a missing piece of work from 400 years ago, and it was instantly worth $136 million. Anybody know Jackson Pollock? They found one in a garage. $15 million. And you know, you've seen a Jackson Pollock, right? It looks like a paint canvas, right? It looks like a drop cloth, right? So literally it sat in this guy's garage because the previous owners thought it was a drop cloth. Like, what idiots. Right? So, does any of this apply to your life? Well, I don't know. I'm going to go home and clean out my garage and check my attic, and I'm going to see dig in my backyard, see if there's any diamonds, maybe put a hole back there and see if any oil pops up. I'm going to make sure on my little piece that I'm absolutely not wasting 1 minute, right? But spiritually, what does this mean to us? Right? Because we always want to look at the physical, and we don't always want to look at the spiritual. But from the spiritual point of view, what does this mean? I'd like to make the case tonight that spiritually this applies to each and every one of us 100% of the time, no matter what's going on in your life. Jesus said over and over again, the kingdom of heaven is at hand, right? The glory of God is all around us, right? So if that's true, boom, 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 if that's true, then the infinite goodness of God is ever present, but we don't see it. One of the things he said is, the kingdom of heaven is all around you, but men see it not. The implication is that every woman sees it, and the men are just kind of lame. Sorry, don't email me. Just don't, right? Right? But the reality is that I want to talk about is reality itself. Is that we're trained only to see what we see. There's a story, and I don't like to use stories if I don't know they're true, but I'm going to use this one anyway. So I put it, did you hear me give you a disclaimer that it could be suspect? I don't have any evidence that it's true, but it's such a great story, I'm going to use it anyway. As long as I give you the... So there's a story that when the first tall ships came to this country, the tall ships were so enormous compared to the conventional canoes that were being used in this country, in this area, that they literally could not see them. Because the paradigm that they were used to didn't work. They literally could not see them. So the holy ones, or the medicine men, or the people that were more open, kept drawing bigger pictures of ships in the dirt and in the sand until they could expand the possibilities that they could actually see the ships that were right there. So there was a study done at Duke where they took kittens and they raised them in black and white stripes, either horizontal or vertical. And what's interesting about this study is if they took the kittens that were all in horizontal stripes or all in vertical stripes, and they switched them, they literally couldn't, because they were raised, everything in their world was either horizontal or vertical stripes. And if they moved them into the other environment, they literally could not see, they could not discern, because they had never seen anything but black and white, either horizontal or vertical stripes. They couldn't see it. And you think, well, how does that apply to me? Well, I'd like to suggest tonight that you've been trained to see what you see. And you're always right about what you see. Everything you see is 100% the way it is for you. But it's not the way it is for God. And it actually doesn't have to be even that way for you. That if we're willing, we can actually learn to see things differently. But this is no small thing. It actually takes a great deal of work to be willing to see what you've never seen before and to believe that you're actually worthy of it. Because it's not enough just to see it, because sometimes we do see a greater level of abundance or a greater level of love or a greater level of joy or a greater level of anything, but then we don't think it applies to us. We say, oh, those people can have it because somehow they deserve it or they're just lucky or whatever reason, but we tell ourselves a story while they get a level of life, a level of good, a level of possibilities, but that it doesn't apply to us. And all the while, the kingdom of heaven, the glory of God, is all here for all of us, but it's kind of a dimensional reality, so you don't get what you don't see, and you don't get what you don't believe, and you don't get what you don't think is possible for you. I don't know if you heard on the news this morning, there was an elementary school in Massachusetts. And they were talking about this school because the opium epidemic that is just crazy in our country right now, they have had to reorganize the way they do education in this school because 12 parents have died from drug overdose just this calendar year, 12 parents. 6 alone in the 6th grade. So just in the 6th grade alone, 6 of the parents have died from overdose. And if that's not enough, right? They were talking about what they're doing now to create an environment for these kids to give them support when for many of these kids, the hell that they live in home is so unbearable. And they interviewed the 6-year-old. And the 6-year-old, he came in the interview and said, yeah, I was a fighter. Cutest little guy in the whole world. Said, yeah, I'm a fighter. I was a fighter. I'd fight anybody. I'd throw things. I was a fighter, right? And what the school had to begin to do was to create a social system around these kids and create enough love for these kids that these kids could let go of the paradigm of the belief of the possibility that they were living every day. And they actually had to create a network around them so that these kids could get loved up enough that they could live a possibility that they had never known before. They interviewed another mom, and her kid was in the 6th grade, and until just about 24 months ago, she had never been clean and sober in front of her kids. Never been clean and sober in front of her kids. She said, being a drug addict is hard work. True, right? And she said, I didn't have anything left to give my kid because it took everything I had every day just to get through that 24 hours. Now, why do I share that with you? Well, here's the deal. We want to look at other people and say, why aren't they living a bigger life? Why aren't they doing it differently? But if somebody comes up and taps on our door and says, why aren't you living a bigger life? We've got a whole story. We got all the reasons we're not living a bigger life. And it makes 100% logical sense to us why we've limited our life, why we've limited the love, the joy, the peace, the abundance. It makes total sense why we've lived a small life. And we will even argue with people that it's not possible for us to get from there to there. But we will look at the person sitting right next to us and wonder why they're so dumb that they don't live a bigger life when we see for them how possible it looks for them that we can't see for ourselves. And does everybody have at least one person in your life that you can see a bigger possibility for? Right? Do you ever want to just help them with that? Do you ever want to just judge them that they're not getting it? Like, do you ever just want to shake them? Like, how frustrated do you ever get with wanting to help them have a bigger life? But what I want you to see today is, I'm sorry, but that's you. And that's me. It's us. It is the human condition. We've been given the kingdom of heaven, and we simply don't see it. And until we do see it, we just keep banging our heads. We keep creating the same day over and over and over again. We keep creating the same relationship and the same abundance and the same moments, and we just keep going over and over again. All the while thinking somebody's keeping us from our good. Tonight, what if you were willing to open your eyes and see the glory of God? But really, that's not enough. Because you have to believe that you're worthy, that it's possible for you. Over and over again, it comes to two things. It has to be possible, but more importantly, it has to be possible for you. What if, just a what if you have 2 or 3 people in your life that you know, just love you, if you were to interview them and say, what possibility for me do you think I don't see? And instead of arguing with them, just became curious about it. Does that make sense? Like, if you have people in your life, friends, coworkers, prayer partners, family members, people that just love you, and you begin to have a conversation with them and just ask them, what possibilities could you see for me that you don't think I see on a regular basis, that you don't see that I'm really committed to, that you don't see that I'm moving in that direction? But get it, it has to come. You can't do this for somebody else very effectively. Has everybody tried to, like, really coach somebody else on a possibility that they didn't want to see? Right? It has to come from you. It has to be your desire to not die with the goodness of God still on the table. True? Okay, I'm going to give you a couple points tonight. Here we go. Point number 1, let's shoot it up there. Is it up there? There it is. What I long for most is already present. Is that true? And the room was hushed. What I long for the most is already present. Is that true? Can I just get like unanimous consent? What I long for the most is already present. Will you say that with me? What I long for the most is already present. Is that true? Can I just say it one more time? Because I know you're trying to write it down, but I'm trying to make the point so you don't forget it before you get to the car. Okay? What I long for the most is already present. Together? What I long for the most is already present. So whatever you think you're missing, whatever you think is not there, whether it's relationships or love or abundance or a new great job, whatever it is, right? Whatever it is already present. It is already present as a spiritual possibility if you could see it. But it's already there. Let's go to 2. This is our prayer. Open my eyes that I may see. Let's say that together. Open my eyes that I may see. Open my eyes that I may see the infinite goodness of God that is all around me. Open my eyes, Spirit, that I may see infinite possibilities. Open my eyes that I may believe that all the good that I see is actually available to me. Open my eyes that I may see. 3. I must be what I want to see. Now, this is where it gets weird. Do you want to say it or do you want me to explain it first? Let's just say it for grins. I must be what I want to see. So that the reality is, you can't see what you're not. Is that true? right? You can't see abundance until you're abundant. You could take two people, one is an abundant individual, one is not. And they walk into the same moment, the same situation, and the abundant person sees abundant possibilities. The not, right? Two people walk in the same room. The person that can hold infinite love sees love everywhere, sees possibilities and joy and connections and moments and sacred opportunities. And the one that's never felt loved, all those people, they're all just rotten. Right? Because you can't see what you're not. You must actually be what you want to see. True? Does that make sense? I hope so. And the fourth one, I want you to build four. Did you go to four? Yep. Build a community to help you see. So, I believe that we can't do this one on our own. Because we keep going back into our own darkness. Right? And when you're in your own darkness, it looks dark. So you actually need people who are not committed to your darkness to help you see. Right? Now, they're going to have their own darkness. It just won't be your darkness. Right? So what happens is you take a group of 3 or 4 people. Every one of them has their own level of darkness, but they don't have your darkness. They have their own darkness, right? So you all grab hands, and you all make this commitment to the life that you want to live. I want to live greater truth, greater abundance, greater love, greater joy, greater aliveness, whatever it is, right? And you're instantly going to fall into the hole of your own darkness because you believe that it's not possible, right? Because it's your darkness. But if you have 3 or 4 people who stand with you in this community of light, then when you're in your darkness, you have at least 2 hands to help you out of your hole. They'll say, oh no, I can see where the holes are that you keep falling in. And you say, oh no, nobody's been able to see those holes. Those holes are tricky, right? And they, no, we can see those holes. But here's the deal. I need you to see my holes if I see where your holes are. Do you get the point here? Right? That you can't see where you fall, but they can. And they can't see where they fall, but you can. And if you have a community of people that help you see, every one of you will get much further down the road because you won't fall in your hole of choice. Are you with me? And you can't do it on your own. Because those sneaky holes, they keep moving them. Or at least you believe they do. That we actually need other people to guide us through our own darkness. Thank you, God, for all the people that guide me through my darkness. Will you say that with me? Thank you, God, for all the people that guide me through my darkness. Let's say it like we actually mean it together. Thank you, God, for all the people that guide me in my darkness. So here's what I want. You ready for your homework? I want you to tell yourself the truth about the thing that you long for. I want you to tell yourself the truth about your diamond mine or your gold field or your oil well or your loving relationship or your abundance or your truth or whatever your thing is, right? And I want you to tell yourself the truth that it's really that important to you that you're willing to be uncomfortable to get it. Right? You're willing to be uncomfortable to get it. And that you're willing to create a community of 2 or 3 people who you will stand together to help each other see what you can't see right now. And that every time you want to fall in a hole, your community is going to say, oh no, this is what you always do right here. This is what it looks like when you're just on the edge of good. This is the hole you fall into. And you go, really? I've done this before? And they go, about 1,000,000 times. And that you realize that you can actually trust them to avoid that hole. And then when you see them getting close to their hole, you say, that's it. I can see it. And they say, no, there's no hole there. And you go, no, no, trust me. I can see the hole. It's right there. Just take one step to the left, and you're going to have a much better day. That we need a community of seers to walk with us in our own spiritual darkness. The kingdom of heaven is all around you. The glory of God is immense and fills you up with incredible light. But you can't see what you can't see. And you actually need people around you who can see your darkness much clearer than you can see your darkness, so that we can all be set free. Now, for some of you, when I'm talking about creating this community of 2 or 3 people, this is going to be your hole. Right? Because you don't trust people and you don't share things and you're a lone wolf and everything you do has to be on your own. And God bless you. You get 50 more lifetimes to work this out then. Right? I mean, you get as much time as you need because God is infinite, right? But if you're actually tired of digging yourself out of the same hole over and over and over again because you know that there's a greater possibility and you're just mad that you haven't figured out how to do it, then you'll actually put a team together. And that team will actually help set you free. Because I promise you there's things you can't see today. But if we do it together, we all win. Will you pray with me? I invite you to open your mind, your heart, your soul to the activity of God that is right here, right now. That today we are just ready to see. We're ready to see the kingdom. We are ready to see the goodness of God. We're ready to see that much love and light and joy right where we are. We're going to grow right here, right where we are. We don't need to sell the farm. We don't need to move to some spiritual place or LA or New York or some place where everything happens just right. We get to stay right here and fulfill every promise that God has made to us. In the name and through the power of the living Christ, we give thanks. And so it is. Amen.